Hey man, you want to play a board game?
Nah, man, board games are pointless.
Exactly. He gets it. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
We are the Brothers Murph, and yes, it's time to talk about games, Nick,
that are pointless.
not centered around victory
They're
points.
pointless.
I mean, you can say all board games are pointless.
That's
maybe.
true, yeah.
But these ones are truly games without victory points. Yes. They have other ways that you can win the game.
Yes, indeed. And we're talking about kind of the wide swath of victory points. So if your goal is to get the most money, we're counting that as points. We're talking about this is a game where you're not collecting anything that can be considered like points, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. And so just put that disclaimer out there. These are games that would be completely pointless.
Our first pointless game is Decorum. This is a game all about working together to decorate a house, which can be a little bit tricky, you know, especially when you're not feeling comfortable with communicating with each other. And that's really the crux of this game. This is ultimately a puzzle game that you are trying to solve, where each of you in the game have certain things, certain ways that you need the house to be for you to be happy. It's a game all about happiness, not points. And that might be that I could have nothing that's an antique in the upstairs bedroom and things like that. But I'm not willing to just out and out say those kind of stipulations that I have for the house. So we instead are going to take turns placing, removing, or replacing different items in the rooms, these lamps and curios and things, and then asking the players at the table, hey, how do you feel about that? And if it fits with your, your stipulations, or it doesn't take away from your stipulations, you can react by saying, I love that, or that's fine, or I hate that. I don't like that. You can't say why, but you might be able to infer certain information as you place and change elements in this house. I think it's a really kind of fun idea because each of these scenarios has an answer to the puzzle. There is a way to solve it. There is a way for everyone to be happy, and it's really delightful and satisfying when you kind of figure out like, oh, they can't have anything yellow in that room. Okay, I know that now. Let me try this because I don't care about the yellow, but I just care about the age or the style of this particular item. Can we find something that works for both? And there is literally an answer, so it's always satisfying. That's Decorum.
Our number 9 is going to be Star Wars Rebellion. This is actually a game that Mike has played a couple times, but I have actually just played for the first time very recently. So it's very fresh on the mind, and it was so much fun. Star Wars Rebellion is one of those games I've been trying to get played for years and just hadn't happened. I finally got a chance to play it, and it's awesome. This is a 2-player Star Wars in a box kind of game. This is a game kind of like War of the Ring where you really get to tell your own version of that story. In this case, Star Wars. It's a 2-player game. One player is playing the Rebellion. One player is playing the, I almost said the opposition. I mean, I guess the Empire. And the Empire is trying to find out where the rebels hid their rebel base. And then the rebels are basically trying to time out the game. There are no points in the game because once the Empire finds the rebel base, they then need to destroy all the rebellion's troops on that base, and then that's how they win the game. And the rebel wins the game essentially by timing it out. There is this kind of timer marker moving up every single round, and the rebellion can do various different objectives to move their marker down the kind of time track. And once those markers meet at the end of that round, that's when the rebellion will win. So the rebellion is just trying to time out the game, and the Empire is trying to find the secret base and then destroy it. The board is a whole bunch of just different planets. And again, at the beginning of the game, the rebellion will choose which planet that they are hiding on. They can choose pretty much anything. And then throughout the game, the Empire is getting more and more of these planet cards that's basically eliminating the possibilities of where the rebellion could be. It's really, really fun. It's super thematic, but you get to tell your own story because you can have it like, oh, Leia gets captured by this. Grand Moff Tarkin does this in this version of the game. I really, really like that about the game. It's so fun to play in that world, but get to tell your own story. And it has no points, and it's a blast.
Next up is going to be Fuji Flesh. It's a Friedman Friese card game where your whole goal is to just get rid of your hand of cards first. Now this isn't so easy because these cards have a wide range of values. I think up to 20 down to 2, but there are more 2s and 3s and stuff than those higher value cards. And the whole goal is to play something down that cannot be beaten. No one can play a higher amount than what you've played. And if it goes all the way around the table and comes back to you and your card is still on the table, you get to then get rid of it. Now you have one less card in hand. Now, this can be a little bit tricky because if I play a 6, there are many cards that are higher than a 6. And the second that someone plays something higher, I lose that card and have to draw a new one and have made no progress. But this is what's really fun, is that you can sort of team up with other players, because if I play a 6, for example, and then the next player, another player down the line, plays another 6, we now join up essentially, and our 2 6s are 12. You add them together. If a third person plays a 6, we now collectively have 18. So it can become such that you have a very high value card via this collection of cards, and that can be hard to overcome. So I love the kind of loose alliances that play into this game, where and we always call him from Frosted Meatball, Jamie, who's right here on this channel. So I always call him on 2-chew trains, because there's more 2s than anything else. You get on a 2-chew train, and you kind of like get really tribal with it. You're like, come on, where's all the people with the 2s? Because we can add up and make a mighty number with this very small, humble 2. It's just a good time. We like the kind of party convention atmosphere that it brings. And again, the simple idea of just like, get rid of those cards.
Number 7 is going to be Ironwood. This is a newer game by Midclash Games. We really, really like this game. This is a 2-player game where you are kind of going head to head, and it's an asymmetric game. There is the Ironclads. The Ironclads are these kind of like mountain, they're not like dwarves, not like fantasy in that, but it's definitely in some kind of fantasy world. But they live up in the mountains, and then there is the Woodwalkers, and they live down in the forests, and they are constantly fighting each other. And so if you're the Woodwalkers, you can only ever be in the forests. The Ironclads can only ever be up in the mountains. And each of you is trying to do different things. So the Ironclad is basically trying to set up their big forges on enough of these mountains, and that's how they win the game. I think they need 3 on top of the one they start with. And then the Woodwalkers have to go and find these totems and then bring them back out to the outer forests. So, I mean, I guess you could say those are points. I wouldn't consider the Ironclad building one of their forges a point, so don't at me in the comments. There's no points in this game. That's what you're trying to do. And so it's really, really interesting. Each side has their own completely unique deck of cards. And you're playing out these cards, battling each other, maneuvering around, kind of like feinting and doing all these different things, trying to, if you're the Woodwalker, trying to discover where these totems are and then trying to get them back. If you're the Ironclad, you're trying to stop that from happening and then start to build your forges. Your forges allow you to put out your troops in like kind of better positions. It's really, really interesting. I really like kind of like 2-player games like that. It's got this really, really great art, this really cool components. It's just really, really fun. I really like Ironwood. There's no points, and it's just a banger.
Next up is going to be a big old game called Gloomhaven. This is a game where you are going through a story, going through a campaign, and each scenario that you're going into is going to have different goals. It might be to, destroy all the enemies in this dungeon you're in, get to certain areas, collect, a person and get them out, rescue them, various things like that as you go through the story to kind of ultimately have the big final confrontation. There's a lot of games like this, these kind of dungeon crawlers and stuff, where it's not about simply collecting points or anything. It's about, objectives and trying to get to a certain place and do a certain thing, usually as a party, as a group, and then kind of progressing the story. And you might get money and things along the way to kind of level up. With Gloomhaven, you're leveling up your character and getting new action cards and stuff, whole bunch of cool things like that. So this is one that's fun because it's this huge story. And then with Frosthaven, it's even larger. And you have all these things to explore, all these different characters to try out that are very different from each other. And it just gives you a ton of fun stuff without the bookkeeping of keeping a score.
Number 5 is actually going to be a solo game called Black Sonata. Black Sonata is a deduction game, and many deduction games don't have points. Some of them do, like my favorite deduction games, which is like the Search for Planet X, Lost Species, UAPs, that whole series, they actually do have points in that. But this is one that does not have points because you're just trying to find out who was the inspiration for Shakespeare's Black Sonnets. And so you're going around London trying to find this mysterious woman. Who was the inspiration? Could it be this person? Could it be this person? And basically you're kind of playing this game of cat and mouse because this person is moving around London, and you basically, on your turn, you can either move, or if you can basically confront someone on your space. So, but you can't do both of those things. So you really need to position yourself where the mysterious lady will move to you, and they can be like, who are you? Kind of to them, basically. And then every time you confront them successfully, you're going to get a little bit of information. You're going to see like the flash of a ring. So you're like, oh, she's married. She might be carrying a tuba. So you're like, oh, she's musical. There's one that says she's into music. I don't know how you find that out just by a quick like, who are you kind of thing, but I assume they're carrying a tuba. Various different things. That maybe they have kids with them. So you're like, oh, they have a family kind of thing. You're trying to deduce this various information. As you're getting this information about this mysterious woman, you are constantly going through this deck of all these people that it could be, and they all have attributes like married, is musical, is a writer, has children, things like that. And so as you find these things out, you're like, oh, she's married. You look at this card. Oh, that card's not married. Therefore, I know it can't be that person, or that kind of thing. So you're trying to deduce who this person is in this weird game of cat and mouse. It's got this really interesting way of programming it where there are this series of cards, and that is going to be programming where the mysterious lady moves around town. And that can be done in a whole bunch of different ways. It's really, really interesting how the deduction works. But the deduction in this game is actually not all that difficult. The difficult part is trying to be in the right place at the right time, because you can run out of time in the game. And that is kind of the big crunch, is trying to do all of this before time runs out. I really like Black Sonata. It's got a really cool system, really, really fun game, a cool theme, and there's no points.
Sometimes you don't want to worry about a score other than your health dial, and you just want to stay alive and knock out your opponent. So this is Unmatched. You don't bother with scores here. You're just out here fighting. You're hoping to use your cards and your abilities to the best of their ability to knock out your opponent's leader first. We have, talked about Unmatched a lot. There's been, since they first debuted, so many different sets that are, based on your favorite IPs like Jurassic Park, things from Myth and Legends, which are our personal favorites, and every set is cross-compatible with other sets. So you can start to put together these like bonkers fights where you can have Black Panther from the Marvel Universe fighting like Dracula, like OG classic Dracula, or a raptor from Jurassic Park, or a T-Rex. And the fact that you can mix and match any of these sets really, for me, like makes it so fun just to think about like what would happen in a fight like this. You can kind of play that out and find out. Every character, again, is different. The cards, their abilities and stuff feel very thematically integrated to who that person is or was. And you are just trying to go up, fight, play your attack and defense cards, hoping to have more attack than your defender defends to deal damage equal to the difference and stuff like that. And it's a really fun game that has a simple premise, simple idea, simple mechanism. So kind of anyone can get in and play and just, again, have that kind of fun idea of like who wins in this weird fight.
Number 3 is going to be Santorini. Santorini is an abstract strategy game, a very pretty one at that, but ultimately an abstract strategy game. And many abstract strategy games don't have points. A great example is something like chess. In chess, there's no points. You're just trying to checkmate the other person's king. And I guess that's 1 point? I don't know. But nonetheless, there's no points in a lot of abstract games. So we're going to talk about Santorini, because I think Santorini is such a great game about just being like boiled down to nothing, and those just very simple core mechanics are just so good. In this game, you have 2 little builders, and on your turn, you can move, and then you can build in one of the 8 spots around where your person is. And you can build on the ground floor, or you can build the first floor, the second floor, or the 3rd floor, or you can build a dome on top, and that's the 4th floor. And basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to move your builders around. You can move up and down these buildings, and you win the game by getting your builder onto the 3rd level. So again, once someone puts a dome on there, you can't stand on top of that dome. So the game is all about positioning and building and trying to get your builders in a position where you can go up and step onto a 3rd floor. And then your job is to try and make sure your opponent can't do that. And so that's just the base game. And that game is already super tactical and really, really interesting. But then there's all these god cards where every player can get a god card, kind of these kind of Greek gods. And these god cards will allow you to do all sorts of different stuff. Like there's one that can put a dome on any level, not only on the 4th level. So you just put a dome on the ground and then put a dome right here and you can just kind of mess with stuff. All these god cards are really simple, but really massively change the game up. But it still keeps that really, really simple tactical gameplay that's really, really great. But again, there's no points because you're just trying to get to the 3rd level with one of your builders, and that's how you win the game. Santorini is, I think, a masterpiece of just like simple abstract strategy design that works so well. It's just outstanding.
Next up is Heat, pedal to the metal. There are, of course, a lot of racing games that would qualify for pointless games because you are just trying to win the race. You're trying to be the first one across the finish line. Heat is very much that kind of racing game. This is a game that uses card play, hand management to dictate kind of how fast you're going, what gear you're in, and things like that as you try to complete various laps depending on the map and the different rules and stuff. And you're trying to win those races. So what's really kind of fun is you're going to start off in 1st gear and you can shift into 2nd gear, 3rd, and up to 4th. And whatever gear you're in, you must play that many cards out. The cards you play are going to have different values, which are going to dictate how far you move. And this is going to be kind of like a lot of racing games where it comes down to when you come around a hairpin turn, it's gonna be hard to be in 4th gear because you only have a certain value of speed you can go around that turn without having to pay heat from your engine, using your engine to slow you down. If you don't have enough heat in your engine, you go around that turn too fast, you're gonna spin out. It's gonna stop you right before that turn. You're gonna shift down to 1st gear. You're gonna add a kind of a loss of focus card, which is gonna make it harder for you to be really precise with your stuff later. So you have to really kind of dial in these things, choosing when to shift up, when to shift back down, managing the heat, because as it goes out of your engine, you have to get it back in your hand, which just is useless in your hand. You have to get it back into your engine. There's a lot of cool things to kind of manage. And this game really takes off with the various modes you can play with, including drafting certain cards so that all of our decks of cards are not the same. We have a couple of special things we can do. There's just a lot of cool stuff, different maps, expansions and stuff and more, and it's just always about get across that finish line first, and if you are tied with someone else, you both get on the same turn, you got to get across it the farthest.
Number 1 is going to be Thunder Road Vendetta. There is actually a game night episode of this with Mike and I, with Lincoln and Nikki. It's super, super fun. Go watch it. It's a really great time. But now this Thunder Road Vendetta is a game, kind of like a Mad Max in a box kind of game, where everyone is given like a troop of like 3 cars. There's a small car, a medium car, and a big car, and they got guns on them, and you're kind of going through the landscape, shooting at each other and trying to damage each other. And basically, you're going until one player is eliminated. And once one player is eliminated, then kind of the final road piece comes out. And your goal is to be the first person to get to the end of that road, or to be the last person standing. You can win either way. So it's kind of a race game and kind of an elimination game. It could be either one. But this game is just chaos incarnate. This is one of those games where I'm like, if you're going to play Thunder Road Vendetta, lean into the chaos. If you're not going to lean into the chaos, play something else. Like, just play something else. Like, this is one of those games where you need to lean into that, because this is a game where you are shooting each other. If you succeed, you will get damaged. And when you get damaged, you very often are having to roll dice to see kind of where your car gets moved. Or you can slam into other cars. And when you slam into cars, so again, you roll dice, and one of those 2 cars is going to move somewhere, which could be you being the one slamming into them. And then you move over here, and that makes you slam into another person, and this whole thing happens, and someone does a giant barrel roll over an abyss. It's a lot. It's super crazy, but it's super, super fun. It's got great production, great gameplay. It's chaotic. It's so much fun. And there's no points because you're either trying to win a race or be the last person standing. It's just, I love this game so much. It's just an absolute blast, and I want to play it so much more. It's just insane.
So those are 10 pointless games, more pointless than some anyway.
That's true, yeah.
Let us know in the comments, though, what are some games that you really enjoy that don't have kind of standard victory points?
Yeah.
Let's get those in the comments to give some suggestions for people to try if they want a game that isn't just points focused, it's got a different kind of goal in mind.